All right, Bulls and Bears, we're back with another dose of economic reality, folks. We're going to get into a lot today. There's so many different aspects to the economy to cover. In every video, I kind of ask myself, how far outside of the realm of economics or finance do we want to get? But pretty much everything is related to economics and finance because you can't do much for free anymore. I mean, you need to pay for licenses to even go fishing now. So even if I start talking about fishing, you could tie that into the economy. I mean, you can pick anything, and there's some economic slash financial impact of it. Even if something's free, you still have to put gas in your car and go there. You're going to be paying money no matter what, unless it's in your backyard. But then your backyard, you have upkeep, you have costs for your property. If it's your backyard, maybe it's not. Maybe you're renting it from somebody. Anyway, you get the picture. Let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to talk about what Warren Buffett said. Some of you love him, some don't care about him, but he's a big name in the financial world. And we're going to talk about what he said. He announced his retirement, but some interesting things came out of his speech Saturday, which was just yesterday. So we're going to get into that. Folks, we've got shortages on air traffic controllers causing major delays at airports, amongst other things. And the hiring for air traffic controllers is very interesting when you look at it. We're going to get into that. But let's go ahead and start right here with the cost of housing, rents, and home prices both. More people are going to mobile, manufactured, and modular homes. And in fact, it's a much bigger jump than I thought here. Here's News Nation put this out. Mobile home sales surged 60% in the last decade as housing market prices climb. New manufactured homes cost $124,000 versus $400,000 for traditional homes. Elkhart, Indiana is a big manufacturer. They grew from 13 to 60 employees. That's one of the manufacturers. There's lots of them in Elkhart for RVs and mobile homes both. But the point is, folks, people are looking to different ways. We've talked about tiny houses here before, but the problem with the tiny houses, manufactured homes, mobile homes, all these, is the land. It's very difficult to get these homes set up on land. And then the land costs are so high still that in the end, I think you're going to save money in most cases. But land can be very costly. And these mobile homes, most of the time, they're in a park and you're parking them, no pun intended, parking them on someone else's land, and you're going to have to pay a lot rent. Now, if you get your own piece of land and you can get everything set up and get utilities set up, get the septic and all that put in, it can be beneficial in the end, but it's very time consuming and very expensive still, especially to get all those utilities set up and everything else, the sewage system. And most people in that transition, they just can't do it, right? Because you have to pay either a rent or a mortgage typically where you're at, unless you're living for free somewhere, which is very uncommon unless you're a young person. Probably maybe a lot of millennials are living at home. We know it was a few years ago, the number was like 50%. I think it's dropped some now, but a lot of people do live at home. But people that don't have free rent, that don't live with somebody else for free, have a housing cost, right? And then if you're going to buy a mobile home and land, right, or maybe you have a mobile home, maybe you're in a park, and if you buy the land, there's that transition period. That's the toughest time because you have to pay for your current rent and housing costs, and then you get the new piece of land ready to go, and that's very expensive and time consuming. So you could be months, even a year or more, paying double costs, right? You're paying for your current housing, right? And then you're paying for the new land development and the setup of the property, the location. So it's very difficult to do that for most people. But otherwise, it would be a very low cost option, even though mobile homes have a lot of downsides to them, and so do manufactured homes. And I've always said here, there really should be a lot more options for just open land and not be so expensive. I mean, maybe something will change because we see a lot of the federal land is now being rehypothecated, so to speak, to now being able to be used for development. And we'll see if it's going to be land for sale that people can move their mobile homes on or maybe build their own home, new construction, or if it's going to be just multi-family housing. We're yet to see how this all plays out, right? But that's what's being talked about. So we'll see how it plays out. I've lived in a mobile home before, manufactured rather. And, sometimes you just have to do that. Sometimes it's the best alternative. Sometimes apartments are good alternatives, right? My grandpa was a farmer for years. He had a 160-acre farm. Towards the end of his life, he was better off in an apartment. He could barely move around, and he needed help, and he needed handrails on everything. So we found him the perfect apartment, in his last years. And for him, selling his farm, and this was back in Michigan, and he was considered one of the big farmers in the small town that we grew up in. And sometimes these different types of homes are better. So I would never look down on somebody, make fun of somebody for choosing an apartment, for choosing a mobile home, for choosing a manufactured home, for choosing a single family detached home with 100 plus acres. I mean, if you're a farmer and you use the land, of course, that's can be the best thing for you. All right, but not to get off into too many weeds here, let's talk about what Warren Buffett said. A big announcement, he is retiring. And a couple things came out of his little Q&A session that I thought were pretty interesting. We're going to go ahead and play a couple clips right here. But people really wanted to hear his perspective on what's happening now with the tariffs, with the inflation, what's going to happen. But something very interesting he talked about was the dollar. Basically, he says the dollar is never going to be dethroned. There's not any caution or concern about de-dollarization, according to him. But listen to this clip right here. Listen to this question that was asked of Warren Buffett here just Saturday, just recently. And I really like the way that this young person here phrased the question. I'm not sure if she wrote it. It looks like she's probably reading it off of somebody else's. She's reading it off of a device, so it makes me believe that it's somebody else's, or maybe she just had to remember it and have it written down or typed down in this case on a screen. And maybe she thought of it. Either way, take a listen here.
Over the past few years, the Federal Reserve has telegraphed that they intend to monetize the debt by printing trillions of dollars, even as they insist that they're fighting inflation. Already, other major economies in the world, such as China, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil, are moving away from the dollar in anticipation of this.
Go back to what she said, though. Think about that. We intend on monetizing trillions of dollars, printing trillions of dollars, but yet we're fighting inflation. That's what we're being told, right? So even she's onto it, or whoever wrote this is onto it.
My question is, are we likely to face a time in the future when the U.S. dollar is no longer the global reserve currency? How is Berkshire prepared for this possibility? And what can we do as American citizens to attempt to shelter ourselves from what's beginning to look like the beginnings of de-dollarization?
Well,
Audience liked it.
I should ask you to come up here and answer some questions. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, we are the reserve currency. I see no option for any other currency to be the reserve.
No option. The dollar forever. So in other words, think about this. In other words, we can print as much as we want to infinity, to hundreds of trillions of dollars, and there's no option. That's basically what he's saying.
Reserve currency. And I think that nobody understands the situation better than Jay Powell. And but he's not in control of fiscal policy. And every now and then he drops a few hints. And there was no question that when the pandemic broke out, I mean, it was a semi-war-like situation, but nobody knows how far you can go with the paper currency before it gets out of control.
Typically, it's about 50 years. The U.S. dollar is not way, but a few years over the 50-year mark. But if you look back at history, other reserve currencies before this have been about right around 50 years. See, 1971, we came off the gold standard, so you could say that was the beginning of the completely unbacked U.S. dollar. And so 2021 would have been the 50-year mark. So here we are, of course, 54 years, still going on the dollar.
And particularly if you're the world's reserve currency, nobody knows the answer to that. And you don't want to try and pick out the point at where it does become a problem, because then it's all over. I think we should be very careful. I mean, we all learned Keynesianism, and we applied it in World War to the advantage of the country, and we did everything we could to prevent inflation during the war, and then the war ended in August of '45.
I had to pause it because he just went on in some ramble, like a very long-winded answer, but here's how we ended up answering the question.
We got everything going for us, but that doesn't mean we can just print money indefinitely, but as debt, and it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
Right? In other words, he doesn't know.
Were you or a loved one admitted to a San Diego juvenile?
Oops, sorry. What some people consider the greatest investor of all time, he has no clue. You can see the answer to that question. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. We can't print money indefinitely. But at the beginning, you said there's no replacing the U.S. dollar. Right? So he has no clue, folks. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. These people that are looked up and held up on a pedestal, looked up at as experts and the be-all, end-alls, they have no idea. A lot of them obtained their wealth because they were born into wealth, right? Or they had an upper edge, or they knew the right person, right? Or they got some special deal, some special package, right? So a lot of this, the reason why you don't see people coming out and saying exactly what's going to happen, because they don't know. No one knows what's going to happen as far as fiscal policy, as far as laws that are going to change. It's impossible to predict, so you just kind of have to place your bets and play the odds. All right, but as far as Warren Buffett, I mean, you may sound like I'm criticizing him. Maybe I am a little bit, but I respect the guy. I mean, I actually met him in person. I worked at Geico here in San Diego many years ago, and he owns Geico is under the umbrella of Berkshire Hathaway. At least they were. I'd have to look it up and see if they still are. I think they are. He came into the office, and he visited, from what I heard, lots of different Geico offices, and he recognized some of the top performers, and shook a lot of people's hands. So he was a nice guy. He came to the office anyways. It was fun. People even did a song contest where he would listen to the songs, all kinds of silly stuff, fun stuff, right? So nothing against him, but I do think that people rely too much on words that come out of his mouth to figure out what's going to happen, when you just heard he really doesn't know. He has no clue what's going to happen. Right? Again, on one hand, he said there's not going to be anything that replaces the U.S. dollar. And then at the end, he said we can't just print endless amounts of money, whatever he said, to infinity. So he's on both sides. He has no idea what's going on, really. All right, but the big news out of the whole Buffett thing is he's stepping down as CEO from Berkshire Hathaway here. This article, they're calling him the GOAT, the greatest of all time. He's 94. Wow. So on another hand, you've got to look at him and say he's 94 years old. He still is coherent. He still is pretty much mentally capable here. Sounds pretty good for 94. So maybe investing in finance is something good to keep you young. Keep your mind sharp, keep you young. So maybe that's something to, if you don't take away anything else from Warren Buffett, maybe take away that he's 94 and he's still is coherent. All right, and just one more thing about this before we move on. I listened to the whole speech, the Q&A session, everything, other speakers that were there, and I didn't really learn anything new that I didn't already know. I did learn that pretty much nobody knows exactly what's going to happen because no one has a crystal ball, and they don't know if inflation's going to go up or down, left or right, because they could change this tariff thing next week. It could all be called off, right? We've seen this red light, green light thing where, it's happening, it's not, we changed it, we revised it. Look at the programs that came out of 2020 with all the assistance that people needed for rents, for mortgages, payments, everything else. Those things are still going on even now. And it's only until recently, talking about student loans now, that student loans are now going to be reported to collections again. That was almost, 5 years? 5 years about that they had implemented these programs to help people with their debt, right? But payments are going up, even though home prices coming down slightly in the big scheme of things, payments are going up. If you have a mortgage, you could see your payment go up even double. Listen to this person talk about how her mortgage payment went up a lot. Let's play this clip here. All right, here we go. Over doubling of her mortgage. Take a listen.
Of how my mortgage increased by 120%. The beginning of this month, I wake up and I have a notification from my bank saying that my account went under $100. This is interesting because the night before I knew the mortgage was coming out. So I transferred a good hefty amount over what the mortgage was going to be. And I'm like, drop below $100. That's crazy. So I get online and I see that my bank has taken a double payment with like a little bit more. So my mortgage is usually $100, baby, I wish, $1,100. And when I went to go check, they had taken out $2,400. So my first thought is, this is interesting. Like maybe what they did was a double payment, like maybe something didn't come out last month. And so
that's another thing too. If the bank messes up, with 70% of people living paycheck to paycheck, a glitch or a double payment, one double payment, car payment, mortgage, whatever, people's finances are thrown into chaos. And that's pretty sad if you ask me. But listen to what happened. This wasn't actually a double payment.
Like maybe that's what it was. Like maybe this is double payment and like a late fee, but that wouldn't make sense to me because it's on auto pay. So if something happened and the funds were there, that wasn't on me. So anyway, I'm like, okay, whatever. Let me just check. So I scroll back up to see if the payment was taken out for March. Sure enough, it was taken out for March. A payment of $1,100. So I'm like, why did I get a payment of $2,400 taken out? So I call my mortgage company and I'm like, hey, what's good? I just want to make sure, like, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Like, why did y'all take out a payment of $2,400? And the lady's like, oh, that's your new payment. What do you mean that's my new payment? She's like, well, that's your new payment.
That's your new payment. Listen.
Because you don't have enough in escrow and your taxes went up by $6,000. My taxes went up by $6,000. Now here's the part that gets crazy. So I'm like, okay, let me check all this out. So three things happened that caused my mortgage to increase. One, she told me that we don't have any money in my escrow. I'm going to talk about that in a second. We don't have any money in our escrow. Two, my homeowners insurance went up from $2,000 to $4,000. Called them. They were like, well, we don't know what's going on. Like the mortgage rates are just the highest they've ever been in Texas right now. We ain't got nothing for you, basically. That's it. Like, what you gonna do? Started shopping around, all of that. The third thing, we'll talk about that again.
Texas. We're told that Texas is such a low cost place to live. Taxes skyrocketing, folks. Here's the third thing.
Was that my property taxes went up. So I go onto the county website to see like what the heck is going on because this doesn't make sense to me. So when I calculate everything, my insurance had only gone up $711. I remember the number because 711. So I called back. I'm like, ma'am, no. This is where everything pisses me off and there's literally nothing we can do about it. There's nothing that we can do about it. We can call to try to get like cheaper homeowners insurance, but for the most part, it doesn't even matter. Now, so whenever I call this lady back, I'm like, or the company back, I'm like, I don't understand what happened because every June or July, somewhere around there, they do an escrow analysis and they see, do you have enough money in escrow? For those of you that are new to homeownership, don't own a home, don't know what it is, whatever. Escrow is an amount that you pay every single month. So at the end of the year, they pay things like your
insurance, taxes,
your homeowner's insurance, and your taxes, right? So that way it doesn't come out of pocket at any time for you.
And usually the mortgage company, just to pause for a minute, will only review it once a year, typically. But if you get a lower cost insurance and therefore cancel your other insurance that was more expensive and you get a refund, you can then pay that money that you received on the refund into the escrow. And you can make a special request to have them review the escrow with the lower insurance or to readjust the escrow with the money that you send to them because you got a refund from your old insurance company, right? So very time consuming, but it can be done. I think she's making it sound like nothing can be done. It can be done, but you'd have to find a much cheaper insurance to replace it. And then hopefully your new insurance will be such a low cost that it wouldn't cause the escrow to go up. Hopefully it'll go down a lot.
You've already been paying all year, so they just write your taxes a check and they write your homeowners a check. Okay, you pay that within your mortgage. Now, and every July they do like an escrow analysis where they say, do you have more than enough? Do you have too little? Do you have to make something up? What's going on? Do you have a deficit or do you have excess? So they hit us up last month and they were like, yeah, you're good. Like you actually got too much. So we're going to send you a check. They sent us a check. They wrote us off a check for $2,900. Okay, cool, bet. Now, for those of you who are like, oh, you shouldn't have spent the $2,900. That way your escrow, baby, we can pay the $2,900 right now. What we cannot pay is an additional $1,300 a month. $1,300 a month is crazy. And there's nothing we can do about it. Like, we can't go back and say, yo, y'all told us we were good. They don't give a damn. They do not care, baby. They don't care. So they literally told us there's nothing, you just gonna have to pay this unless you have like all the thousands of dollars saved up right now to give to us in a large check. I think it was like 10,000, something like that. Then baby, you just gonna have to pay this extra $1,300 every single month. And then
Folks, we told you right here it was going to happen. We told you Florida and Texas were going to be the areas where things were going to get really painful for homeowners. One, because prices went up so high in those states. And then two, the natural disasters. Insurance costs are skyrocketing. But looking back over 5 years, ever since 2020, so many people moved from the higher cost states to these states, specifically Texas and Florida. You could put states like Tennessee in there too, and some other surrounding states. But people are hurting big time. And you heard her admit that basically she is from Texas. So being a homeowner, we're told it's the American dream. We're told that's the goal for everybody, is to be a homeowner. But having your mortgage rate double, wow. I mean, it can happen with rents too, right? Rarely, but I've read stories about where rents doubled. But having your mortgage payments double, that's insane, folks. But when you know everything that's happening, it's not that insane. Right? We see the cost of insurance going up. We've seen the natural disasters. We've seen these rate hikes. Companies raising rates. Of course, taxes are going to go up with the higher land and home valuations. That's another problem with the high home costs, is you also have higher upkeep and taxes in this case. All right, let's play another one here, folks. This looks like the same person that's reacting to this news. Listen to this guy's prediction about the housing market, right? He says this year is going to be the meltdown. We've heard that for a few years, that it's going to be the meltdown, but they always find new ways to keep the bubble inflated, to keep kicking the can down the road. But take a listen here.
People are going to lose their homes. They're going to lose their homes. I'm telling you guys, the storm is brewing and it's coming fast. The rate of acceleration on property taxes and insurance is unlike anything anybody has ever.
Here we go again. Property taxes, insurance, right? The storm is brewing. We've heard that for years too. They always find ways to kick the can down the road until they don't.
Seen. People's monthly payments are going up from $1,800 to $2,800, from $2,500 to $3,500. One of two things can happen. You either lose your home to foreclosure because you can't afford that payment, or you try to sell your home so that you can get out of this terrible situation. And the more people that start to now try to sell their homes, the more inventory increases, the more those prices are likely to come down. This does vary state to state, so it's not exactly the same in every state. Some states are in worse situations than others. They weren't kidding. Those weren't kidding. They said you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Hi, this is part 2 of how my monthly mortgage payment went from $3,832 to about $7,200 and change. So the first thing I did is I went on to my mortgage, the website, to see about the escrow, to make sure that I was giving the correct facts. Because again, escrow. The point is to bring awareness so this doesn't happen to somebody else. So whenever I looked it up, what I saw was that, again, there was a shortage. There was an escrow shortage, and this shortage came from last year as well as this year. So the county tax was projected to be $539, but it ended up being $4,627. And again, that's because when we purchased the home, it was a new build, so they calculated it as it just being land. They didn't calculate it as it being a home being built on land.
Wow. So they calculated the taxes as land without the home. And then when the home was finished, the following year, when they finally reviewed it again, then they had the higher assessment.
Again, 100% our fault. I'm not putting blame on anybody. Do I feel that the realtor that I had at the time should have made me aware of this? Yes, I do.
The realtor didn't make you aware of it? Of course not. The realtor is going to tell you everything that's positive, and they'll tell you things they have to tell you by law.
I feel like the mortgage company should have made me aware of this. Yes, I do. Do I think that they just wanted to sell and they didn't care about it going up and they knew that it was going to go up? Yes, I do.
Of course. They're worried about their money, not yours.
But at the end of the day, it is my fault. It is my husband's fault. We shouldn't rely on other people to do our homework for us. We should have looked into this. But so that was one thing, that tax went up. The hazard insurance, it went up $1,131. The mud tax went up $5,908. The school tax went up $5,671. So the total shortage that we had was $23,311. Luckily, I was able to, thanks to the realtor that I have now, she advised me to call the mortgage company and see if they could do something to stretch that shortage out so that we didn't have to pay it up front to make that payment, that monthly mortgage payment of the $7,200 go down. So that's what I did. I called the mortgage company and luckily they were able to stretch it out. So now we're paying $5,663 a month, which is still more than we're able to pay, which is why we're still selling it. But luckily they were able to do.
Wow. So she was able to talk him into something else. Did you hear what she said though at the end? That's why we're still selling it. It's still more than able. So they're selling their home. And back to the guy at the beginning of that video, he says this is the year. Again, we've been hearing this for years. Is this the year? I mean, at some point things get so unaffordable that things start breaking. People have to start selling their home. And if we start seeing a tsunami of sellers and listings, then we could finally start to see this balance start tipping where more homes are for sale, less buyers, desperate home sellers have to start dropping prices. Then the snowball begins. We talked in the previous couple reports about how inventory is rising. It's actually up at a multi-year high now, not an all-time high, but a multi-year high. Let's take a quick look here. All right, looking at a chart here that goes back almost 10 years, and we see we're at 959,000 as of April. That's higher than what it was in November, which was 952,000, and you have to go all the way back to December 2019 to get higher than where we're at now. So over a 5-year high, folks, in inventory, and this could be the beginning. This could be the beginning. Housing bubble going bust this year. Please let me know what you think down in the comments. What do you think about Warren Buffett? What do you think about the question about they're going to create trillions of dollars, helicopter money to infinity? But yet we're told that they're fighting inflation. I'm glad that person did phrase that question the way they did. And then Buffett's answer, nobody knows, nobody knows. The whole thing's a joke, folks. I mean, nobody knows except for maybe we might know a little bit, hopefully, right? So we're going to be on top of it. We're going to be preparing for what's coming. So make sure you're subscribed, folks. Please let me know down in the comments your thoughts and come back to this channel for more economic, financial news and more. Bye for now, people. Peace.